All right, mic check. Now I would never diss my own mama just to get recognition. Take a second to listen for you think this record is dissing, but put yourself in my position. Just try to envision witnessing your mama popping prescription pills in the kitchen. Boom! Classic. Classic Eminem, one of the goats. Hello, America. Hello, world. Hello, you. It is your new best friend, Cashman, California, and this is the Pod is Good podcast, episode 56, aka the Pod is aka Notorious Pig. I lost it for a second thinking about Eminem. Back to another goat, Notorious Big. We mimic that. The Notorious Pig. Pod is good, and all the time. If you know, you know. If you don't, you will find out. Today, I got one of my guys in the building. We are about to have one of those conversations. You know how on this channel we try to have those needed conversations, those voices that you need to hear, those opinions and perspectives that on a day-to-day basis you just don't come across. Well, today we will go into the life of a peace officer, the day-to-day, the ins and outs, what his eyes see. He's gonna relay that to us so that we can get a little snapshot. You know what I'm saying? Let's get it going. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Officer Brandon Clay. How you doing, good sir?
What's up, man?
Man, I'm glad to have you, bro. We've been trying to get you for a minute now.
Man, appreciate it. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, man. I know you a busy man, you a family man, you working for the community, you working for babies, you working for your wife, you working.
Of course, of course. Always working.
He's a working man.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's dive into this, and I'm gonna start off with like a big question.
hmm
Does the system work? Your opinion.
That's a loaded question, man.
Oh, I know. I know. I said we're gonna start big. My bad.
In general, um, the answer is yes, but not without flaws.
Mm.
Um, and then and the real question, since we're having a conversation, then does it work equitably?
Mm.
Um, and the reality of that is not there's some challenges. I'm not gonna out the gate pretend like we just blind to things, but that does not mean um, that every instance and everything we see um, is. I guess you can say there's ways we see things on the surface,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always mean that that's just because you get a narrow view of kind of the reality.
Yeah.
Uh, doesn't mean that's solely the reality for everybody. I guess that's the best way I can.
Okay. Okay. I just want everybody to get like kind of an overview of what you feel about it. Now let's deconstruct it. First off, how did you get into being a peace officer?
You know what? To be honest with you, I was far off of that track. Growing up as a kid, it wasn't really something that crossed my mind. It wasn't an interest. I wasn't, somebody running around and said, "Man, I grow up. I want to put a uniform on, and I want to." If you asked me when I was, 9, 10, man, I was like, I'm gonna have a briefcase, a nice suit, and I'm gonna be,
Mm.
um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be out there. And then I had an experience. That actually while I was in college that kind of shifted things for me. I had a friend.
Uh-oh. Friend didn't like that. You brought up the friend. He must have hit the button on you. You know that happens. He done hit the button on him. The friend shut you down, Brandon. You can't be
Very,
talking. It's hearsay. You know what I'm saying? That's hearsay. Your friend shut you down. Go ahead. Go ahead. You must have about to say friend again. Don't say it.
um,
This happens. You know what I'm saying? And we'll make it through. We'll be all right.
yeah, we're gonna push through it.
Yeah.
He actually ended up being a victim of a homicide in my first year, and this was in our our college living. It wasn't the on-campus dorms, but it was kind of a off-campus student environment.
Mm.
And through that experience, I actually got um, um, a life-changing and different perspective of the justice system from essentially the victim standpoint. To this day, still close with his mom family, and it was a heartbreaking thing to watch. And at that point, you do your question mark. It goes up when you experience a level of professionalism um, from other people that are out there, and you see a level. Man, some of these people really do care
Yeah.
about the community that's out there, and I got a kind of a perspective that changed for me. That actually led me originally down the road of saying I want to work in the DA's office. I want to work with
Oh, wow.
uh, the prosecution. So I was actually looking to going into law. In doing so, I interned and I kind of sat through the trial phase and stuff like that. And I got to be honest with you, it was a snoozer for me. I was like, I can't do this. My head was bobbing in court, and I was like, yeah, not exactly what I was looking
Maybe
for.
not.
It
Maybe not.
wasn't thrilling. I mean, it's not like what it looks like on TV.
Yeah.
Of course, the education component is there, the intelligence, the wits. When you deal with an attorney, people have attorney jokes, but they're some of the wisest people out there. The way their brain works and functions, and their ability
Mm.
to analyze information so quickly and respond to it is a unique thing. But I found out that wasn't really probably wasn't for me, at least not at that stage in my life.
Right. Right.
I started looking at the different elements and the different pieces of the system as I watched that entire case play out from the night the incident happened up through the verdict, and even the components of aftercare for the victims and their families and stuff like that. And that was something I said, you know what, I think. Despite the fact that we know that there may be issues and things there's an area where on a personal level you can contribute um, to essentially, the system in a righteous and in a proper way. And that's kind of what took me down that path, or at least piqued the interest.
Mm.
From there, I learned different elements of the system. I found where I felt like I could um, fit in best, and essentially best contribute
Yeah.
to society and to the community, in a positive way. So
That's
that's
dope.
kind of what took me down there. But that in reality, it was a gut wrenching and kind of heartbreaking experience that exposed me to to a different side of things. I said, you know what? Um, like I said, it's not all bad. It's people that show up and they do their job and they do it
Yeah.
in your best interest. So
That's commendable, man. That's very admirable way to begin a career, being open to how you can change the lives of others. I actually, my best friend is almost like a similar story. He's wanted to be a cop almost his whole life because he grew up in Watts, California, and just watching what went on in the community. He literally, the first day that I met him in our early 20s, he was already like, yeah, I want to
do this.
become a cop so I can go protect my neighborhood. I was like, wow.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I sit next to people. I mean, as we know, cops are human.
Yeah.
People come from all walks of life, or I should say, peace officers come from all walks of life, and in doing so,
Yeah.
um, you get people that have different experiences. Some people, like you say, from the time they was able to put their pants on, they said, I'm gonna get in a uniform one day. And you got other people that are affected, rather it be by tragedy or by direct situations that get into um, get into the role. Um, and to the viewers, I said I was going to say I say the term peace officer in a broad way,
Mm.
simply because I want to make sure that it's clear that these are my personal opinions and expression, and it's not a reflection of my agency or any other law enforcement agency that's out there. So when I use that term, we're not going to narrow it down into my specific role or job duty or agency that I work for, just out of respect for the fact that I am not speaking on their behalf. I'm speaking solely for myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now, was peace officer your first job, or did you work at Taco Bell first? Did you?
No, man, you know what? It wasn't. I grinded. I'm proud to say that I've essentially been working since age 14, legally permitted since age 15.
Wow.
Um, I started off just in the neighborhood, odd job, family friend that ran a tax business, and I started off there during tax season. I was, stamping envelopes, preparing, yep, documents, and putting it on, and then from there,
Yeah.
um, kind of believe it or not, a wealth of experience even before getting in to this job or role. Everything. I guess my closest thing to Taco Bell was Six Flags. Um,
Oh,
so that narrows it down for a lot of people. They go, you probably only from a certain couple of areas, but yeah, I mean, I think everybody passed through there for my community and my area, and I
yeah.
actually worked there for quite some time. In college, everywhere from Ace Hardware to movie theater to Old Navy was probably my shortest living career. I learned retail wasn't for me.
Mm,
Um, After I want to say it was like Black Friday or the holiday season shopping, which everybody's doing now. Man,
yeah.
people threw all the clothes, and then they was like, "Well, you got to go fix that table and fold those clothes back up." I said, "Man, I don't think this it. This not
You're like,
mine."
I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was like, I think I finished that day up, and I let them know, yeah. And now when I go to stores, I'll tell you, I do my best not to unfold. I always think I was like, man, somebody got to come behind me, and
It makes you appreciate the work.
I don't get it right all the time, but I do make a little quick effort. But
It,
yeah, a wealth of background experience from there. I worked also with a nonprofit organization up in the Bay Area. Did that for a while, transition from where I went from case management in that capacity into learning and working for one of their divisions that was also a startup for a software program. So I learned a little bit of that as I was actually going through the background process and the
oh,
hiring process um, for the agency that I went to work for. So
okay.
I think I know a little bit of everything, as I say.
Yeah.
Um, jack of all trades, maybe master of none. Uh,
So I gotta ask
a
before
little
we
bit about everything.
all right, before we get into the, your more decorated job titles, I need to know when you look back at, at the minimum wage jobs, let's call them that. Cause when you start off, you getting what you get because they know you're gonna take what you gotta take.
Mhm.
In your minimum wage jobs, which one was your favorite?
My favorite.
Yeah, absolute favorite.
Uh, See, you know what? I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna say it was probably Six Flags. Um,
I had a feeling it was going there.
I
Yeah.
think what I learned through that is when you have a lot of those jobs, sometimes you're there for, of course, the money, but what you run into, you meet a lot of real people. I'll put it
Mhm.
that way, right? People right, of all walks of life and all ages that are there to grind. So you got people that are younger that are trying to get their work experience, but you
Right.
also got people that that's been through some stuff, and you build bonds and you build relationships. You have conversations with people that can really help you frame life, and it actually helps give you direction for
Right.
those that sit back and kind of take it. You know what? I learned a lot from one of my OGs, rest in peace, but my supervisor at the time. Um, he was retired Navy, had retired from another job, and was there because that's kind of where he was hustling. He had child support and everything else, but he also found some joy in
Yeah.
being. He kind of took me up under my wing, so we were two opposites on the spectrum. Here I am, I'm
Yeah.
16, 17 years old, coming into life, and here he is with this wealth of experience.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just like the little stuff that we was able to kind of bond over and laugh at. Uh,
Yeah.
but he always had some type of lesson and some type of OG info for me that he would some little gems he would drop to me every once in a while. And instead I'd be a little hard headed sometimes, and I come back, hey, how'd that go last weekend? And I tell him, boy, I told you don't do that.
Yeah.
So you get that, and
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
probably one of the best in terms of personal growth.
Yeah.
Um, and that's outside of the job and the company itself. You
Yeah.
know, that's where everybody's gonna gripe about, but what you take from it, I think is key.
I think you brought up a great point. I think that's the one of the unappreciated beauties about those your first few jobs, especially when it's like a minimum wage job where almost anybody can come in there is diversity. Like, of course, there's diversity later on in life, but there's
Hmm.
also a lot of similarity because it takes more steps to get there,
True.
right? So there's a certain similarity in mindset. There's a certain similarity. There's parallels that you can find with a lot of people alongside of you. Whereas when you at Six Flags or when you at Old Navy, it's like a little bit of everything,
Yeah,
and you
for
kind of
sure.
don't appreciate that diversity until it's gone.
Yep, yep, 100%. I was gonna say, in the moment, it's probably a little harder to
Yeah,
capture. But when you go and you look back and you know, from an angle of maturity, you go, you know what? While that part was fun and that was cool, and you know,
yeah,
we was every once in a while jumping on a roller coaster or something like that. I'm like, what you really take from it is the experiences in which you can apply to life going forward. Rather it's the do's or the do nots.
yeah.
There's things
True.
that you can take from it.
True. And you just brought up something I know anybody listening that ever wanted to know what it's like to work at a theme park is dying for me to ask. And that is, do you get to ride the rides for free or you just get like a big employee discount?
No, you get to ride the ride. I can speak for Six Flags because that's when my experience was. But
Yeah.
yeah, their employees get to at least. I mean, this is 10 years ago. I don't know how much has changed, but
Right. Right.
yeah, 15 years ago. Actually, I'm getting old. Um, yeah, the employees get when you're off, not in uniform. You get to come in the park. I believe you were able to bring a friend with you
Nice.
um, you want, and you can enjoy the park in your off time at no cost. I mean, of course, you got to pay for your food and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but even that was discounted. And then at the time, again, they had little activities during the summer, which was cool for kids because they would after the park closes, they used to do a little thing called the Ride Olympics, and you can go in there and you get to ride the rides, but it was in a competitive format. So they made, let's say, one of the rides that spin around in a circle, they
Yeah.
give you a cup of water and put you on a team and say whoever team come back with the most water at the end of the ride.
That's
Little,
dope. That's
so
dope.
it's not all it's not all terrible. What I will say about my experience of working, um, not just there, but in other jobs similar, like you say, the minimum wage jobs or the lower level jobs, the work ethic that it takes to stay on the job and to be successful is I think is undervalued and underestimated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll say there's certainly from my experience jobs where you make $70,000 a year, $80,000 a year, and you probably do maybe a quarter of the real work that they're doing. However, at that point, you know, as you make it to the 70,000 to 80,000, $100,000 jobs, now it's about mindset, not necessarily
Yeah.
the physical capabilities.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And man, the shout out to, or not shout out, but that's a little note. If they still do that at Six Flags or any other theme park, any young man, any young man that's listening, that's looking for your first job, if they allow you to not only ride for free, but to bring a guest, yo, you got a date lead in all the time. You can get a date popping anytime. Like, hey, I can. Hey,
Yeah,
it's on me. I got you.
for sure. For sure.
We may have to split, the funnel cake. We might have to go half on the funnel cake, but I got you on everything.
That's right. I got you. I got you in.
All right, all right. Let's get to it. Let's get to it.
Uh-huh.
Let's take me through or take us through um a day in the life. What does the average day look like for you as a peace officer right now?
Um, you know what I'll say? I think it really depends on your role. Again, when I say peace officer, obviously it can be more narrowly defined. Rather than mean street cop, sheriff's deputy, corrections officer, probation or community supervision officer, or anything along those lines.
Yeah,
I can tell you, I don't work in the prisons anymore, but at one point I did. That was definitely an eye-opening experience. It's a microcosm of the world at large.
yeah, that's a good
When
way
you
to
get
say
there, it's crazy because there's a lot of things that people don't know about the correctional system and the correctional environment. I think you typically get two extremes
it. Mm,
from the public when they envision uh, the system. You get people that envision just outright chaos and no structure and just a free for all, right? A violent free for all, and that being the constant state.
right,
And,
right.
and then on the other end, uh, you get people who will envision just complete shutter lockdown, misery, um, and everything else. I'm gonna say, it's not to say because I'll be the first to say if I was in that situation and incarcerated, I would probably feel a level of miserability for
Right,
sure.
right, right, right. Yeah, I'm
Um,
not built for that.
However, the
Not built.
idea of it's funny that I had a friend one time asked me, said, "Well, wait, they get to go outside?" Or I thought they were, but the vision that they painted to me was like, no, I thought it was kind of the old school chain gang. Everybody's lined up, and I'm like, no, no, there's believe it or not, there's a wealth of resources that are provided um, in the crate. I'm not saying they're the best ever, but that's society at large, right? We can make an argument for the public school system and people that aren't incarcerated and some of our local communities and stuff, and say that things aren't the best. But there is, I think, little knowledge or not as much knowledge as people should think about the access to programs. Um, or rehabilitative options that are in the prison system at this time, and essentially the ability for some to take advantage of.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
mean, I think that's a full aspect
Yeah.
of it. I do community supervision.
Hmm.
Uh, that's another aspect, of course, of the system and our law enforcement system. And same thing. I would say you definitely see a lot now that once you're out. You see a lot in the confinement of an institution, but you also see a lot, probably a lot more, actually out on the streets. What you do is, or what you get is a different structure
Hmm.
between the two. Um, like I said, a lot of people go, "Oh, it's free for all." The system, the prison system, internally is actually pretty structured. It's a very structured environment. Rather, that's structured because of the institution itself and the staffing model, or structured because of the inmates in their self-guided interaction with
Hmm.
each other. There's multiple levels of the structure.
Yeah.
Um, they conflict at times, absolutely.
Of course.
Um, but the idea that it's just kind of random and chaotic, it has its moments. I said
Of course.
don't don't get it twisted. But I think on the every minute, every hour,
Yeah.
uh, people running around like just crazy. I'm like, no, that's not exactly the look of it.
So, so So real quick, that's a really good point. You say most people that are on the outside have a certain view of it, right? Right, like these two great extremes.
Correct.
But on day one, when you were in the prisons on day one, you also may have had that same type of perspective. Were you scared day one?
Man, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know what I was walking into. There was some second guessing. There was some idea, right? Because as you say, that when that gate slams behind you, whatever, especially for the first time, rather you going as an inmate or as a staff member,
Yeah,
it's a different feel and it's a different energy.
yeah,
I don't know how else to explain it, and that's the real of it. It doesn't necessarily um, translate to for some people it does, but I think for most people, once you get in that environment, it doesn't necessarily translate to fear. Um, but I would say I don't know if there's too many people that can truly say that there's not a thought somewhere in your mind, um, for your safety, for the I
yeah.
mean, like I said, you'll see a lot of in that environment. Um, there's a lot that goes on, um, and there's going to be a party that goes, what, this I'm here for a check. Um, but what am I walking into today?
Right.
It can be a normal day, or it can get ugly.
Wow.
But what I learned, probably within my first shift, and it's something that they do train you for, but it doesn't necessarily stick with people and immediately until some people have to learn different ways, um, and that's the idea of respect and what it means in that environment.
Hmm.
Uh, Respect doesn't necessarily mean you're giving ground. It doesn't mean that you're a walkover. Um, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be a walkover or anything to get um, respect from rather your colleagues or from the inmates.
Yeah,
But the idea of just being consistent, being fair, um, doing your job, doing it with humility, not walking in there, man. I can kick anybody ass in here because I got, I got this weapon here, I got that there, and I got
Yeah.
the power behind me and all that other stuff. You should not approach. I can't say you can't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't approach this type of career field with that mentality. Um, you go in, like I said, with the idea of understanding and comprehending what your responsibilities are. um, do your best, of course, not to take stuff personal
Right.
in the
Right.
process, and understand that I'm here for these 8 hours or 12 hours or however long the shift is. And while I'm here, uh, this is my responsibility, and my character is to carry out my responsibilities, and to do it, in a fair way. And I think when you take on that attitude and you carry yourself that way, it gets recognized, um, from both the staff and from the inmates, that you're consistently fair. Like, I don't go out my way to cause a problem for somebody. But if somebody's out of line or something's not operating the way it's supposed to be, it is my responsibility, um, to address it. And I think once you grasp that concept, it makes your day to day a lot easier, because you don't go, man, did I tell somebody I can whoop their ass yesterday? And now I don't feel good. I don't feel like I don't feel like getting down. This dude's gonna sneak up on me and put me in a choke.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't got to go work worrying about that, and that's not.
Right.
Um, that's not what I learned too. That's not a common thing. I used to think, um, again, coming from a different place and not growing up wanting to be, or expecting to be, in the hero, in a position of a officer or something like that, where that's your ultimate hero. Um,
Mm.
I had definitely read and seen videos and stuff where media portrayal of an abusive system and stuff like that. Where even with taking the job, I had to question. I'm like, well, is this really something that I want to do as a black male, young black male and stuff? What challenge is that going to present to me,
Yeah.
uh, walking into this environment? Am I walking into something where I'm essentially perpetuating a system
Mm.
that's challenging for somebody that looks like me? And then I got into a frame of mind where I say, you know what, you can look at it that way, or you can look at it and say, well, change has to come somewhere, right? If in fact that's the case, we can complain about the injustices in the system, or we can be a part of it from the inside um, to act with integrity, to dismantle essentially a system of abuse or misconduct that goes towards people of color or something that might look like me,
Yeah.
um, and be a part of the solution. So I say, you know what, you can walk away, so or you can see the opportunity, to make things better and be great. Now I will say, after I walked in there, I said, nah, that might be a narrative of things that happen, but that I can tell you from experience, that's not a common, um, at least not in the system that I work with. I think they had a pretty well regulated, not perfect, but a very well regulated system
Hmm.
of accountability and responsibility for staff.
I mean, that's a high order that you put on yourself to say, you can be in the system and can kind of help promote change within it instead of just critiquing it from the outside. So from day one, the day that you just spoke of, when you're a little apprehensive of walking in, to when you left, to when you transitioned to other roles and being a peace officer, how would you grade yourself on how much you've been able to affect change, whether it be small or large? Because change is change.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna be honest. I would grade myself high. I think, again, small change, though small, is significant, because again, when you can have that interaction with individuals, rather, you're changing the idea and the mindset one step at a time, and
Mm.
creating that element of approachability.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, when dealing with people in the public, and dealing with those out there, to say, you know what, no, 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 I'm approachable, because what I would, like I said, being in terms of being fair, what I always will tell people and remind you, it is my responsibility to hold you accountable.
Mm.
But at the same time, you can understand um, that I have children, I have young men that I'm raising, that one day will look like you, will be in your shoes, or can be potentially in situations, and I wouldn't want somebody in a position of power of authority to address them in an abusive way.
Yeah.
Uh, I wouldn't want them to, and that, again, that's a difference from um, having authority and using in a certain authority when necessary,
Yeah.
and abusing said authority. There's a fine line and a difference to it. So again, I can work with people, hold them accountable for what they're doing. And when you have those interactions, you get people that come back to you. You have interact with people. You know what? I messed up. You get people that in the system that will come back and apologize and say, you know what, I was off the hook, and you know what you did, and I'm not gonna say that nobody's ever taken me, to a level where you're like, because sometimes you do, you have to go there and say, you know what, I wasn't disrespectful to you, I asked you to do something, I've been very straight up with you, but you talking to me like, like you're crazy. So I didn't approach you that way or
Yeah.
whatever. I came to you with a level head. I'm treating you like an adult. I'm coming to you as a man or a woman.
Yeah.
Um, I'm setting expectations. You chose not to follow said expectations or to
Mhm.
adhere to those requirements. And these are the consequences. I also learned that a lot of times you can mitigate some of those problems by being, again, clear about, who you are, what your approach is ahead of time, by simply going, you know what, these are your responsibilities. This is what I have to hold you accountable for. Um, and if you don't deliver, these will be the consequences. These are your choice. I like to remind people. I say, at least in the system that I've worked in, everyone's an adult. I
Yeah.
don't have any juveniles. I say so. Um, you are responsible for making adult decisions,
Mm.
and when you make a decision, there's going to be a consequence. It's going to be good or bad, right?
Yeah.
But you are dictating what the consequence is going to be by the decision that you make, uh,
Right.
and that's your choice. Just understand that when it comes time for that consequence, it becomes, again, my responsibility um, to be fair and to follow through with what I'm tasked to do. And that's generally kind of my approach and interaction. And in doing so, I say that does affect change in terms of your ability to be approachable, rather is by family members, victims, like I said, the offenders themselves,
Yeah.
um, that can look at you and go, you know what? Not everybody is an a hole.
Mm.
Not everybody is a, excuse my language. I know we're supposed to be on the, which got,
All good. Do you?
okay. I think I dropped a few. Um, but yeah, again, that
Making those shifts.
catch and go, you know what? You're approachable. I've been in situations where somebody will look at your partner and say, I don't want to talk to him. I want to talk to you.
Ah.
Right? De-escalation, because
Yeah.
but the sense of, I can have a conversation with you, you're going to hear me out, you're going to
Yeah.
be fair, and you're going to have a fair response. That doesn't mean, right, that you're not going to end up in jail as a consequence for whatever happened,
Yeah.
but I'm at least going to give you that respect to see, where this is going or whatever, and
Right.
to hear you out or whatever, because a lot of people just want to be heard. um,
That's really good. That's really good, and it all follows that line of establishing respect. Going to someone and telling them that the consequences will be in direct relationship of your actions. So you let me know. I'm not going to dictate to you. You just let me know which direction you're going to go. I have a job to do. You have a job to do. You tell me how we going to do it. And I think that I can see how that promotes a certain level of respect. So I know you're speaking. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, and then to take it a step further, a lot of times what I've seen, not just with myself or my partners and stuff that are out there, is when you express to me, look, my interest is in the good consequences. A lot of times there's resources and direction that we can give you to say, okay, let me
Hmm.
help get you there. Then let me figure out what we can do, because if this is your end game and
Yeah.
it sounds good to me, and that's what I would like to see about, I'm gonna invest some of that energy, because I'd much rather do that than the flip side of it, and being in a situation where we tussling and going back and forth and everything. I'm like, so if I have an opportunity, um, to extend to you as a man or a woman in a situation where you can humbly say, you know what, I don't know how to do that. I just need help with
Hmm.
it, because, and you recognize that I'm in this situation because of a decision I made the first time when I didn't know what I was doing, and I was, and I didn't ask for help, or I didn't have
Yeah.
that balance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you are I know you're speaking more broad terms and kind of a generic scope of an overview of what you've dealt with as an officer. Obviously, without giving any names or details or anything of that nature, are there any success stories that stand out to you? Are there any people that sometimes pop up in your head that maybe you saw when you got into whatever the situation was, and you saw them to the end, or maybe you saw when they came in and when they went back out, that warms your heart? Like, man, if they could all go that smooth, or like,
Absolutely, absolutely. Several.
oh
We'll say, I mean, and again, that speaks to the question earlier that you said, well, is the system broke? I think the first thing that you asked was, is the system broken? I would say,
yeah,
well, I'll be the first to say it's not perfect.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I think the idea that it's full out broken and there's nothing in it that works to the advantage of anybody who's either been in the system or gone through the system, I can say that I don't necessarily disagree with that. I'll give you a couple of examples again without saying names, but um, or places. But I'll tell you there are programs that individuals can participate in while incarcerated, and a lot of times they translate to opportunities for some of them when they are no longer incarcerated or when they're released to community supervision, rather be probation or wherever they're going. Um, I've seen individuals that come out with computer coding skills and are working, making more than you would imagine from somebody that that may have a felony or so on their record, but are easily pulling in six figures because they took the time to take advantage of programs that were available to them while they were incarcerated. They
that's
learned
dope.
how to do computer coding. They went over to Silicon Valley, and they got lined up and transitioned into a job and took advantage of it. Same thing. There's a lot of trades that are learned while incarcerated, and again, not easy for everyone because again, we're not going to pretend like you don't have a conviction or something on your record, but there are people out there that are willing to take a chance on you, they're willing to to stick their hand out um, and pull you in the right direction,
Hmm.
give you opportunities for employment. So I've seen people come out in the welding trade and get straight into the welding unit, the carpentry unit. I'm sorry, not unit, unions, in different avenues that have given them opportunity. Heavy machinery operators and stuff like, and they come out and make decent salaries, a decent living, go on to have a family, um, and and are able to put the past behind them. And then the reality is we got the other side of the spectrum, and it is, I say that because it is a spectrum. There's the extremes, but people move along, kind of along the line, right? You have the people that will flat out tell you, hey, I'm built for this. This is what I do.
Hmm.
I'm gangster. That's what I do. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to continue to do it. No disrespect to you or anybody that wants to help me, but this is me.
It is what it is, and I guess that's in their world. That's respect too.
Sure,
You know what I mean? Like, hey, hey,
sure.
waste your
It's
time
only
if you want.
and what I learned is everybody has a different value system.
Hmm.
Um, so what we may value and what our definition of success
Yeah,
may not be a definition of success that's ingrained to somebody else. Because people tell you,
yeah,
you know what, I don't really care if you make 120, $30,000 a year, you got your own house, you got a nice car, and you a square. End of story. Right? You get that. You're like, oh, okay, well, because
period.
that's not the definition of success
Right,
for some
that's a
people.
fact.
Other people's definition of success is, rather it's being the man on the yard or on the block or whatever. Is yeah, essentially that level of respect. Hey, I'm moving up a different hierarchy, and that's my goal, and that's what I'm looking forward to achieve.
Yeah,
Um, of course, in a perfect world, in a perfect society, we like to get people out of that mindset and that mind frame. We want to pull them towards the ideology of success. But definitely had people tell me, well, that's a Western definition of success, right?
it's a
You,
fact.
your goal is to capture, finances, material, whatever, rather be your house and your car.
Yeah,
And I always say, I mean, I always kind of get back. I'm like, yeah, and my freedom. That's key, right? That's
that
a big
part.
component of it.
That part.
Uh, but the idea you can still achieve, with I mean to go back to kind of the example I said, there's several individuals that I personally know or and through community supervision have experienced and watched them reach a level of success.
That's
Um,
awesome.
It,
Now,
absolutely.
did those situations were they were they transformed through the system? Like, did they come in one way and then somehow, once they got some support, once they got some reassurance, once they got these tools to go through, and then they started gaining a different confidence, separating themselves from whatever surroundings they had before, and then they transformed? Or did these were they in situations where they just kind of ended up here? You
I,
know what
I,
I mean?
I think they
Mistakes, they got here, and now it's like, oh, perfect. I can do something else.
I've seen each example. I've seen the one time mistake. Man, I did something. They slammed me for it. They didn't just slap me on the hand. Man, they got me right,
Wow.
and I'll never do that again. Lesson learned. Right.
Wow.
So you
Wow.
have those individuals, 100%. Right. And then you also got some that this is my third, fourth time on this road. Like I got to try something different. Like enough. I'm getting tired of it. Right. I'm getting too like my success rate is not too good. I'm just not good at it. You get you get those individuals as well.
Wow.
That are ready to turn tide after a while.
Yeah.
Uh, like I said, you get the ones that come in and be like, man, this wasn't for me. I ain't built for this. It was a horrible experience.
I could imagine.
You do.
That's probably me. That last one, that's probably me.
100%, 100%.
Um, so we all know that there's like, they talk about a prison pipeline, right? We
Hmm.
all understand that there's systematic um, elements of our society
Hmm.
that usher certain people almost directly to the prison doors, right? However, in what I'm hearing from these programs that are established, which are great to kind of reassure people and to educate them and build them while they're doing their time. But what does the pipeline look like for reintegration? How much support and almost hand holding is there when these gentlemen or gentlewomen exit those doors and they're trying to re-enter? Is it like, hey, I learned what I learned there, now I got to figure it out? Or is there some kind of escort? um,
I'll tell you what. Again, this is an example of it's not perfect.
hmm,
But what I would tell you right now, from experience and observation, we are so much farther along right now than ever before
hmm,
in terms of reintegration. So it is. Does it meet the criteria and the standard just yet, or the expectation, I should say, of the masses? Probably not. But that does not mean there's not currently essentially a victory. Um, that can be touted. Like I said, there was a time, if you go back probably to the 90s and even the early 2000s, where a lot of these opportunities uh, weren't there for individuals to come out and be successful. So in terms of kind of that reverse pipeline, is definitely something that is evolving. I think there's a conscious effort in many areas and jurisdictions that understand that, because we go back again to the idea of this person is incarcerated and is put away. But I think now that there's a recognition in the system that goes, yes, but when he gets out and he's no longer on paperwork or whatever, that is my neighbor, and we can't do anything about it except trying and to help this individual now. Um, I always say I think there's a issue at large that's usually ignored, and that's to me what I consider to be an artificial binary, right? Where we're taught to choose between the education component or our safety, right? It's either public safety or education, right? These are general fund measures, right? And we can't, if we fund one, we have to defund the other, right?
got you. Yep.
Or
Yep.
that they can't work together. But I think in experiencing and recognizing, until those two elements are truly uh, intertwined and ingrained with each other, you'll truly see success. And again, not everybody wants to be a part of the educational system. They tell me, I don't do school. I'm not interested. Don't want it. Whatever, right? But
That's
there's
true.
components, rather it's trade school. There's some way um, in which people should be able to find their contribution, essentially, to society in a positive way. And I think the biggest challenge is most people don't know how to identify that.
Hmm.
At least most people who are incarcerated or in the justice system don't know how to identify where they fit in.
Hmm.
But they do know that they already have been labeled and put in a box as an
Yeah.
outcast of society.
Yeah.
Um, rather they earn that title, for previous decisions or not. Um, the fact that that's where they stand, right? As
Yeah.
people come and they look at their background and they apply for a job and everything else, so they're so used to sitting in that box that it's not that there isn't a way out;
Yeah.
it's that they need somebody to help them truly understand
Yeah.
uh, how to get out, and that it takes work or whatever, because you can't roll um, out of, let's say, the prison system,
Yeah.
um, and show up. Do some people do it? Yeah, it does happen. Show up day one, have a job lined up. That's not the norm, right? If you've
True.
been away 9, 10, 11 years, right? What's on your resume, right? What's your work experience? What's in your background check? Um, those are barriers, but because the barrier is there doesn't mean you can't get over it.
True.
But I think historically there was a place where essentially the barrier was up and people were ingrained to just stop at it.
Yeah.
And now I think systematically, when we talk about reversing that pipeline, there is a narrative out there from the community and at least an effort, I can say, to try and reverse um, that pipeline and say, hey, let's get the water flowing the other way.
Yeah.
You've done this, you've done your time, we let you out. Now we need you to do your part. And along the way, we're going to, try and help. There's community organizations out there that are dedicated
Hmm.
uh, um, to this, but it's about navigating it. And I think that's the biggest challenge for a lot of people is how do you get around
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. It's complicated. It's complicated.
Absolutely, 100%. It's a complicated, but I always say in most conversations like this is that uh, we have uh, a challenge or in communication of oversimplifying things.
Hmm.
Um, and when you oversimplify, you're not managing expectations. So
Hmm.
then people essentially expect the system or they expect things to work a certain way
Yeah.
because the expectations weren't managed to say, hey, this is complex.
Yeah.
It's not because you have to remember you can set up programs, but everyone's situation is different. Every person is an individual.
True.
There will never be a cookie cutter answer
Yeah.
to anything. And I think you have to recognize that in order to say, because we're quick to deem something a success or a failure.
Immediately.
So, well, if it's how do you define something as being a success? Did it help
Right.
half the people? Just did it help a quarter of the people? Right? It may have only helped 10% of the people, but it was a success for those 10 people. Right? Those people are going. That 10% is going to swear by it.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe it didn't work for the other 90. So then, do we now no longer fund that because it only has a 10% success rate? If that's throwing
Mhm.
money away, is it a waste of time? No, it's not. You had 10% of your people that are success. That worked for them. Now, how do we help the other 90%? Right? Um, and then vice versa. Like I said, you get a narrative um, and an idea that we're quick to go, this doesn't work. Um, kind of that's why I said, how do I answer that? Is it broken? No, you can't just throw it all away and say, yeah, but there's elements and there's pieces because it's complex. There's different levels to everything that we do. And I mean, I personally think that contributes to the political climate that we're in right now. Everybody ready to wring each other's neck, depending on which box you check in November. Right? There's this idea um, of everything having like one side is perfect, and there's never a middle ground to where people not only say never, but there's not as much as there should be where people are open to conversation and understanding what works for one person may not work for the other person. What
Absolutely.
works in this situation doesn't work in the other situation. But we're
Right.
stuck in a binary where it's either one or two, red or blue, right, up or
Yeah.
down. Like no, that's not exactly. It's a continuum, and some
Yeah.
things work in some places, and you have to figure out as a society how to piece everything together
Hmm.
in order to contribute to success.
Hmm. I like that. I like that. I think I'm gonna be the voice of of the people who are not advocates of anyone coming out of prison. Not that that's me by far, but just to kind of further the conversation in this direction. So you said, maybe 10%, isn't a failure, right? Whereas,
Mhm.
some people might say, hey, but my tax dollars paid 90% of my tax dollars were wasted on this.
Mhm.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to pay for these programs anymore. I'm over it. I'm asking you because we're talking a lot of light, which is really good because you don't always hear it presented this way. Matter of fact, my best friend I was just talking about, he wanted to be a cop forever. He finally got a chance to be a juvenile detention officer. When he first went in, he had these grandiose ideas of change, and we can do this and programs and music and competitions and stimulate their minds. And after a few years, he was like, F them kids. It was like,
Yeah.
he was like, hey, they ain't gonna do nothing. They ain't gonna do nothing. He was, I mean,
Uh,
completely empty. And
yeah.
so how do you speak to that when you have people that either have been involved in those systems or those people or been or noticed that the programs only work 10% for the people, and yeah, that's great for those people. The story of the girl that's trying to save the starfish, but to the people that are like, okay, but we got to do better than that. Have you ever had any ideas about that?
It is easy to get jaded and broken into because again, and this is speaking again to law enforcement in
Mm,
general, the interactions that a law enforcement officer or a peace officer, whatever, is going to have is typically people at their worst, not at their best, right? Rather it's long term, you're in a bad situation because you're incarcerated, or responding to a 911 call where it's all out chaos. Those are generally the interactions that people. So it is easy, and it's not in defense um, of people who who have the responsibility of public protection. But there's a perception and a burnout, and a sense of tiresome because it becomes repetitive, and ultimately, it's easy to tell yourself that you don't see the success,
yeah,
right? Because man, I was over. I got a 911 call to that house yesterday, or whatever. And they're doing it again. Like I gave them a warning. Like what's going on? Like it's not
yeah,
sinking, right? It's not sticking.
yeah,
This kid juvenile in and out of the system. Seen him 5 6 times already. Like I'm trying. Like I don't know what else to say to you, right? To
yeah,
to really to really get you there. So it's easy to go. No, but it's a challenge. I'm liking it. It sucks, but I say, you know what? That might be the 6th time, maybe the 7th. He'll get it. I don't know, right? And that's when you look back. Well, you do. You have to step back and you go, you know what? I can say it 100 times a day because that's what right now. That's what I'm being compensated to do.
mm,
And me being an advocate for change
yeah,
in that system says, then I have to learn. Uh, and it's a learning, it's a learned skill, right? To exercise patience with people, and does it always work in the immediate? No. Um, but again, doing community supervision, like I said, it can be repetitive. You get people that will do the same thing over and over and over, right?
yeah,
Um, and one of the challenges I used to have is I used to always have to say, and you got to keep this person um, while they go to jail, but they're coming out, right? So I
mm,
had to literally like train my mind and my brain. Like when I take you into the Sally Port of the jail and I drop you off, knowing that you're going to be out in a couple months or whatever after your, whatever your sentence is for your action, I'm still tasked with dealing and working with you on a daily basis. So
yeah,
as I drop you, I'm gonna let you know. Look, this is a consequence for the action, right? You knew it
yeah,
was coming. You knew your responsibility. When you get out, let's try it again. I've literally said that to people. Let's try it again. No, 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 no. You're mad to the point. I say you're mad. You're gonna be upset with me. I know you let me down or whatever. Right? This is my responsibility to do that. Right? You got some time. You taking the time out. You can sit. You think about it. Right? I say, and then we come back and we try it again. And next time when I say, hey, do you need help with this? Do you want to go to this program? Whatever. You need to think about it and say maybe that's a better place for me to be. Now I'm
mm,
offering you something, right? That's a different approach
yeah,
um, that can be taken in ideally to help yourself not get jaded. With that being said, it is frustrating because you have to also balance safety. You have to also balance uh, it's essentially victimology, right? And understanding when people do think. Not, I know there's the idea and the concept of victimless crimes, right? We take substance abuse, for example.
yeah,
And you go, okay, well, if they're in the corner using drugs, it's a victimless crime. But people have to understand again the continuum that a lot of times people
Mhm.
that are, um, affected by substance abuse and addiction,
Yeah.
are typically in a position where they can't fund their own substance abuse. So what are they doing now? Now it elevates into a different in order to obtain money.
Yeah.
Uh, there's crimes that affect other people's quality of life.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
burn in houses and stuff like that to feed your habit. Now, my kid's TV is not just gone, which is material, but my family's home feels violated because
Yeah.
somebody through the window. I can replace the PlayStation, but that sense of safety and fear still exists. So then there's also reasonably so a level of frustration that has to go, into the system that says, hey, we're being patient with you because we understand that you may come from broken element and stuff in life. However, um, you got to be held accountable for these actions because we can't let you go out there and continue to victimize people. We can't let you go out there and continue to shoot at somebody every time you get mad because these are lives that are lost. And while we want to be patient with you, we can't risk the next child because you smashing down the road at 100 miles per hour, shooting out the window or whatever it is that you're doing when you're angry,
Right.
freeway shooting and all that other type of stuff that
Or
goes
walking
on.
into a movie theater or a school
E-
shooting. Or,
Exactly. So
yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's that element too where you go, yeah, is it can this person be helped or fixed? Maybe, maybe not. Does everybody um, fall on that continuum of there should be some grace in time?
Mm.
That's a personal. That's a subjective opinion. Um,
Yeah.
some people will say no, hell no, and I can understand that, right? If you've lost loved ones, right? If you've been victimized, and say how you want them you probably want them to throw away the key on
Yeah.
homeboy or girl. You don't want you like, yeah, no, I'm good. There's no my hurt will never go away.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
then there's other people, family members, loved ones that are incarcerated and stuff. And say, you know what, that was a mistake. He's learned. But again, how does the system, how does it really gauge and know when somebody's learned
Yeah.
and truly are experiencing and putting themselves in a place of change, or if they just checking the box to say, I'm trying to get out of here. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
That's
relative
that's
balance.
tough.
There's no one size fits all for it. That's what I mean. Like we look at the system as being able um, to codify everything and to be able to say if to make a formula for everything. If this happens, then this. If this happens, then this. If this person does this, then they should get this because that's how long it takes for this person. And we can play the law of average and say, yeah, on average, somebody who experiences incarceration for 12 years comes out and that's not a statistical fact. I'm just using that as an example, but
Right.
comes out and is receptive. I'll tell you some of the best um, individuals in terms of compliance to come out um, from incarceration, um, from my observation, are those who did extensive terms, life terms,
Hmm.
20, 30 years. Not all. Again, this is I'll never group everyone into it, but for the most part, they go, yeah, no, I'm not. This is an answered prayer. I threw a hail mary and somebody caught it. I'm
Mm.
taking the win, right? I'm out the way.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
second group and the second population that may be surprising that I've noticed is receptive to the idea of change are those who were prosecuted at an extremely young age, 17 years old, 18 years old, and they did a significant amount of time, such as 10 years, 12 years, and
Yeah.
now they come out and they're in their 30s, mid 30s, and
Yeah.
they look around and they go, all my friends got a family. I'm 35. I've never been to a bar or nightclub, but I'm 35. I can't really just roll up in there with the 22-year-olds and stuff like that, right? So there's an element of
Yeah.
life that they
Yeah.
meet, and they're like, I just don't want to do that again. Again, not all, but a
Yeah.
lot. And then the ones with the most challenges are, unfortunately, you give a 18-year-old or like you say, the juveniles a sentence of 1 year, 2 year, and at a lower level managed facility or something like that, and they come out with stripes on on their sleeve, like I'm the man. You know what? I just did 2 years,
Yeah.
and to get back into it because they didn't understand that break.
Yeah.
They didn't have a significant amount of time. 2 years to me is significant. I ain't trying to sit in there for
Right.
for a
But
day.
for them, like you're saying, it probably was more of just a continuation. They probably
Yes,
witnessed and did the same things.
I learned who the OG for this area is and blah blah blah. I didn't
Yeah.
establish the next. I know a few people now. I know a little something. So when I go back, to the streets, yeah, I did what you call it, and whatever I did, yeah, I sat down for 2 years, but I could still do it. Funny thing that always makes me laugh, and they go, "Well, I know what I did to get caught last time." And I always say, you got to change that mindset. It's not just it wasn't about getting caught; it was about the action itself. You know how you got caught. I said, but next time you can slip up on something else. I said the only way, is to be straight up and down, man. Fly clean. Try something different. Because if you go
Yeah.
back to what you know and you think you cleaned it up,
Yeah.
uh, like, yeah, I should have never took so and so with me. They a snitch. That's why I messed up. Would have been cool, right? I say that,
That's where I
that's
messed up. The
mindset.
whole thing would have been right if I hadn't have brought him.
Should have took him with me, man.
No, that's an eye-opening point that you made, and when the sentencing happens based on the crime, how
Mhm.
the sentence affects that person, how you don't want the wrong people to hear this and start thinking, okay, well then let's give everybody longer sentences because they didn't have a better chance of being rehabilitated. But at the same time, I can completely understand how that transpires. I mean, when you're young and you don't know any better yet, your brain isn't even fully developed yet. You go in at
Mhm.
20, brain doesn't develop properly till 25. Now you 35. It's like, hold on, I get it now. Let me out of here.
Because when you miss life in a large
Yeah.
capacity, make anybody go, man. Like I said, you look around, nieces, nephews, and then unfortunately for some people, they lose a lot of loved ones. If you think over a period of 10 to 12 years, we lose people, in life,
Yeah.
and missing the opportunity to say goodbye. Rather it's a grandma, uncle, big brother. So the things change, life evolves, and when you realize that you miss such a big and significant chunk of it,
Yeah.
the evolution of technology, you come out and the world is different.
Right.
In a sense, that feeling of being displaced, a lot of people go, man, I don't want to experience that again.
Yeah. That's real, man. All right, my guy. This is I have at least like four questions roaming around in my head from from sentencing to some of your saddest moments to I mean I'm there. You got me completely pulled in. I know most of the listeners are as well, but I'm not going to take up more of your time tonight. Though I do want you to come back onto the show because I feel like y- y- this conversation went in a very pleasant direction. I'm pretty sure most people feel it's like to talk to someone who's dealing with what society might view as the deplorables or the lesser than, but to hear such a positive and optimistic outlook. To even hear you say a program that only worked for 10% is still a success for that 10%. I think that that's a great way for us to view that and stop looking at it with the mindset of what you said, like this extreme on this end, extreme on this end. And so you easily classify things as it's this or that, and you forget the nuance. And when things get lost in nuance, you can't really pay attention to those details.
Right. For
And
sure. For sure. Like I said, when you identify something like that little 10%, we tend to have a conversation of let's scrap it, let's get rid of it. It doesn't
yeah,
work. Versus how can we narrow the scope to focus on that 10%, and then for the other 90, let's develop and create something else, so that we're not wasting money on the 90 that's not
right.
successful. Let's figure out how to move that and transition that into something that's going to be successful for those individuals.
Yeah, I mean it's such a massive problem. You look at okay, it's 10% successful. Okay, let's just look at uh, moving it to 15. How do we get up to 15%?
For sure. Yep.
Let's start there. Then we'll get to 20.
You can, but then again, I'll also say it is highly probable that only 10%, that 10% of success, right?
Mhm.
That might be the only part of your population that fits that model. That's what I said, and that's the concept of diversity. I'm like, you may not be able to get it to 15%, with
Yeah.
that particular uh, instance of a program or example. I'm like,
Right.
because it may not be meant for the other 90 that's failing in it. You have
I
to do
see what you're
something else
saying.
for 90.
So
But
you got to
but
create
again,
some
we're so quick to
cross.
declare it, to move the bar and say, okay, well, I mean, yes, we want to incorporate as much as we can into that, but that 10 might be the 10 for that. Now let's look at a different approach
Right.
for the other one, because at some point, if we truly believe that everybody is reachable, then we have to figure out the best way to reach them. It's like the little communication tests and stuff you take when people have different styles of communication, different learning styles,
Yeah.
different love languages and stuff. And when you tap into that and go, okay, that might not work for that person, but that doesn't mean there isn't something that works for the others, right?
I like that. Now I understand what you're saying. You like
Mhm.
basically you're saying we are successful that this program is for this 10%. So
Yeah.
cool. We got something for them.
Now, when we narrow the
What's
scope
next?
of it for that, that was 100% successful. That 10, because if we had 100 people and that program was focused on 10, and all 10 of them were successful, that's 100% success rate. Now, how do we get the other 90 to be successful?
I like it. I love the way you think. I love the fact that you haven't got to my boy's place of like F them kids. I love that. I love that. Officer Brandon Clay, before I let you go, this is how we sign out here on Pod is Good. I will say Pod is Good. You say all the time. I'll say all the time, and you say Pod is Good. You got me?
100%
All right, my guy. Pod is good.
all the time, and
And
all the
all
time,
the time,
pod
Pod
is
is good. My guy. Appreciate you, bro.
all
Tell
right.
me, promise me you coming back, though.
Oh,
We
for
got
sure.
more dialogue.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can keep it going.
Love it. Be blessed. Tell the family I said what up, and we'll holler at you soon, man.
Likewise, happy holidays to you.
You as well, brother.
All right.
Peace. All right, y'all. That has been the 56th episode of the Pod is Good podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, my guy, Officer Brandon. Wow. Wow. When people that have jobs like that, careers of that nature, are able to speak from such a positive perspective, still viewing things that most of us will never ever see, viewing people at their lowest places, like he said, a lot of their interactions are with people at their lowest points in their life, and they still have a positive outlook. They still have this momentum for change, this optimism for someone to be transformed. I think that's just incredible, and it's infectious, and it makes you kind of start to feel like, what can I do? What should I be doing better or more, or anything to try to aid in this, right? To try to help out, because you need the community's help. This isn't something that just 100 people at a facility can manage. The 3 or 4 interactions that these gentlemen or gentlewomen may have while they're locked up could manage. No, this is an ongoing thing. This is an ongoing thing. They could have stepped out with all the intentions to do right, but then when welcomed by a scoffing society, they went, okay, fine, fine. You want me to be the bad guy? I'll be the bad guy. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I appreciate everybody in the chat. I appreciate everybody watching. Man, this is a good one. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe. Drop us a like, a comment. Tell me what you felt. I'm definitely gonna have the officer back because we got some more to talk about. We got some more to talk about. That was good. All right, y'all. Pot is good, and all the time. I am Cashmere, California. I will holler at y'all later. Wow, that was good. I holla.